welcome to Dog on the Plot. I'm Kerry, this is Dory, and this is a super frosty start to March. But it is March and it's time to start sowing loads of stuff. And actually there's so much stuff that you can sow in March that I thought that for this month's sowing video, we would choose some things that are a little bit more unusual. So of course I'm going to be sowing all the usuals, so brassicas, I've got my beets up there that are just coming up, and of course I'm going to be sowing tomatoes, and in fact we'll do a whole episode on tomatoes coming up soon. But I thought the folder that I would get out for today's video is this one that's labelled miscellaneous. And this has all the more unusual seeds that I've collected, and I thought I would share some of these with you today. The first unusual seed I'm going to sow in March is samphire. And I have grown samphire before. I grew it from starts that I got online, and it's delicious. It's a green that is a succulent. It is sometimes called a maritime parsley, I think, and you can cut it up and sprinkle it onto salads and into stir fries, and it has this really salty crunch to it. You can start sowing samphire from March, and you sow it into a good sized pot that it can grow on in. Once it's germinated, you do need to water it with a salt water solution, so that's something to remember, and you should be harvesting it by the late summer. Now it is a perennial, but it does need some protection over the winter. But yeah, I'm excited to try samphire from seed this year. One down. The next seed that I'm going to be sowing in March that I've never sown before and is a little bit more unusual is lemongrass. Now, lemongrass is a tropical grass. It obviously needs heat. I will be starting it off indoors, but I'm going to put it in a pot, and it can come out into the greenhouse and outside for when we have really lovely sunny days, and then it will need protecting over the winter. So I'll bring it in that pot over winter. But I'm really excited to grow something like lemongrass. I've tried ginger in the past without much success, so let's see how I get on with lemongrass. Now this next one is really unusual. It's an edible tree, and it's called the Chinese mahogany tree, but She Grows Veg, who are selling the seeds this year, is calling it the beef and onion tree. And that's because the leaves of this tree taste like, apparently, beef and onion crisps. Now I'm vegan, I try and be healthy, so this seems like a really good alternative to me. And you can put it in salads or you can cook it in stir fries, but I was thinking perhaps if you air fry the leaves, you would get like a kind of crisp, and so you would have the taste and the texture. But we shall see. It's probably going to take a couple of years before we can actually test this one out. Now it will need heat to germinate, so this is one that I'll be doing indoors, and it does need to be protected over winter. It can only go down to 5 degrees C. So that one is probably going to be more of an edible houseplant. It's starting to warm up in the sun. Now my third seed to sow in March that's a little bit unusual, you've probably heard of this one to be fair, it's amaranth. Now I grew tons of amaranth last year on the plot and in the home garden, and it's just absolutely stunning. Of course, it's an edible. You can eat the seeds, you can eat them like you would quinoa, and in fact quinoa is another seed that I've got that I might be sowing this year. But honestly, it has value just as an ornamental. It looks so striking in the borders, and you can get lots of different kinds, and indeed I seem to have collected 10 different varieties of amaranth, which is a little bit excessive, but I probably will be growing them all because it's super easy to grow as well. It pops right up, you pot it on, it really needs no special attention at all. I absolutely recommend growing amaranth this year. My next seed is the mangel wassail, and you might have heard about this one. It's trending a little bit this year and I'm jumping on that trend. This is one that actually can be sown now direct into the ground, though probably not on the solid ground that we've got this morning, maybe a bit later today. It's a type of beet, but it's meant to be sweeter and less earthy than regular beetroot. And of course it grows absolutely huge. I've got this mammoth red version, so I'm expecting it to need a little bit of space on the new plot. Now, of course, mangel wurzel is only really unusual as a human edible. It's grown by farmers for cattle fodder all the time, but it's being reintroduced as a human food because of this high yield and also because it's mostly pest and disease free. So it could be a really easy crop to grow. It could be a real game changer. Now I'm in the polytunnel because I've just sown a row of radish, but obviously radish isn't unusual. The one I want to talk to you about is melon. I guess melon isn't that unusual, but I've never had any success growing it. But now I have the polytunnel. These are sugar baby watermelon. Now you could have sown these in February and you can sow them right up until May, but the important thing is growing them on under cover. They are going to need warmth, and I've tried to do this before in the greenhouse, but I didn't have enough space to give them. But now I have space, so I'm hoping for success on the melon front. Now my next seed is something that I have tried to grow multiple times without success. It always germinates really well, but again, it's something that I haven't had the space to grow on, and it is a chocha. And I've got two different varieties. I've got giant Bolivian and I've got a chocha fat baby, which is what I've tried to grow in the past. Now last year I grew them up the arches in the home garden and I got one chocha. Oh my goodness, it's an chocha. Oh my God. I grew in a chocha. I mean, it's not an impressive one. But I've got fresh seed and I'm really hoping to crack this one this year. They're meant to taste like sweet green peppers, and if you can get them going, they're really prolific. So I think they would be a wonderful addition to my harvest this year, if I can get them to fruit. I'm back in the home garden, and what a difference a few hours makes at this time of year, to go from those frosty mornings to this beautiful balmy afternoon. Well, I'm ready for the final seed, but I will have my bonus seed for this week, and I'll also put my full March sowing list at the end of the video. But for my final seed, I've gone with an allium. But this isn't any old allium. This is an unusual one. It's called Society Garlic. It's a brand new one to me. I think it's often grown as an ornamental, but it is an edible, and you eat it for the green shoots. And it's a cross between garlic and chive. Now, the really special thing about Society Garlic is it has all the benefits of garlic. So nutritionally, it has the benefits. It tastes like garlic, and I think garlic tastes great, but you don't get the bad breath, apparently. So we'll hopefully be testing that out later in the season. Now this is one I have already sown. It hasn't come up yet, but if you look next to it, I've got another strange allium that's growing in the same tray, and this one is sweet garlic. Like the Society Garlic, the sweet garlic is a mix, and as the name suggests, it's a mix between leek and garlic. I grew it last year. I did it as part of a sow along with Robin's Gardens, and I was underwhelmed. It tasted mostly just of leek. There was only the very hint of garlic, but I did sow it really late and I had kind of weedy plants. So I'm sowing it early this time. I'm going to give it a real good go this year and see what my verdict is when the plant has had the best chance. I've got a little bit of seed left if these fail, but otherwise this is it. So I would quite like to save seed from it this year as well. And I want to see what the flowers look like when they do go to flower. Now I'm actually going to cheat for March's bonus seed. I'm going to do two bonuses, and this first bonus is actually 3 different seeds, but they're all roots and they're all quite unusual roots. The first one is salsify. I have grown salsify before. I grew it kind of by mistake. So I sowed the seed, I didn't think anything germinated, and I just threw the compost onto one of the beds. And then lo and behold, up came a salsify, and it had the most beautiful purple flower. And then it goes to this incredible seed head. And I actually collected the seed. So I've got some of the original seed and I've got some of my own collected seed. So I'm giving salsify another go, and I'll probably be planting that on the plot along with scorzonera, which is also called black salsify. So they are very similar. They do taste differently though. So the salsify tastes like oyster mushroom flavored parsnip, whereas the scorzonera tastes like asparagus flavor parsnip-like. So we shall see. But they both grow very like a carrot, and you would treat them quite like a carrot. So yeah, we see how that one goes. And the third one is another very carrot-like root, and that is the Attica root parsley. And I've got this seed from Incredible Seed Library. It's actually from the former National Breeding Research Centre in the Czech Republic. And these again are like a carrot-shaped root. They have a white skin, and you would cook it just like carrots, but you can actually eat the tops like you can with carrots, but they will have a parsley flavour. So you can eat the tops and the roots of the Attica root parsley. Now, the reason that we have a second bonus for March is because I've just had a delivery. My Sarah Raven dahlias have just arrived, and I may have gone a little over the top, but I've got big plans for these dahlias, and I'm sitting at this particular bed because I think I'm going to turn this into a cutting flower bed this year. Actually, I'm going to have it as a blueberry, dahlia and straw flower bed, which may seem like a peculiar mix, but actually all of those like slightly acidic soil. So I think I've got 5 blueberry bushes. So I'm going to dot those in a kind of zigzag pattern here. And then I'm going to plant a couple of dahlias between each one and then dot the straw flowers around them. That's my big idea anyway. The first thing I'll need to do is start preparing this bed, dig in some ericaceous soil to increase the acidity of the soil. And yeah, get planting. It's very exciting. Now you might be thinking, come on Kerry, dahlias are not that unusual, and you would be right. But I have quite an unusual way of starting these off. So if you're interested in how I get my dahlias going, check out this video from my 12 days of Easter last year. Plus everything that I sowed in February, you can still sow in March, and that video is linked here. Thank you for spending some time with me. I hope to see you next week. Take care.